I feel like we've had this video on our heart for like a really long time. We're finally getting to do it on our way to the airport.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to leave without talking about it first. And we actually haven't seen a lot of people talking about this. So when Val was doing research for this video, and did you find anything?
No, I didn't. I would find like a lot of videos on YouTube just saying like what a godly relationship should be like based on the Bible, but we didn't specifically find any videos that were talking about what those struggles are and how to overcome them.
And there was one girl on TikTok that we found.
Yeah, and she came up on our For You page. Like we weren't searching for her, but her name's Veronica, and I guess she inspired this video because I had already kind of like wanted to talk a little bit about it, but I just didn't see anybody else talking about it. So it kind of made me a little bit shy to share and like just put all of our information out there.
The topics of this video are gonna be really raw and just honest. Maybe not too honest, but we know that we used to think that this is something that just us struggle with. I think the purpose of the enemy is always to make you feel like you're alone in your struggle. And one of the Bible verses that actually came to mind was this verse in Psalm that says, as long as I was silent, like I suffered in agony until the day that I spoke out. I'll have to look for the verse exactly, but it goes something along those lines. But we want to talk about lust and relationships
Yeah.
and godly dating, because I feel like everyone talks about lust in the context of porn and stuff,
And don't have sex before marriage
yes.
and have boundaries, which are all good and valid, but like they don't specifically talk about like being that there's gonna be that desire to be with each other before marriage. Like you're gonna struggle with temptation. It's not something that, like, when we first got in a relationship, we were like, why has nobody talked about this? Like, we literally thought that it was going to be easy. We weren't going to struggle. We weren't going to have temptation.
Yeah.
Like, boundaries were going to be super easy to keep. And, like, marriage, once we got to marriage, like, everything was going to be okay. So,
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
go ahead.
yeah, for context, we are in a distance relationship. So we met during the pandemic.
In 2020.
2020, we're a COVID relationship.
Yeah, and this is our last time seeing each other before we get married, God willing.
But when we first met, before we started dating, because we known each other for 3 years before we started actually dating, and I felt like it was so much easier, like as friends. So we had such a good friendship. We never talked about like anything sexual, never any sexual topics brought up. Um, I was, I came out of like addiction to lust, to sex, and porn. I was working through that. And God brought a lot of healing in that area. So when we got into a relationship, nothing could have prepared us for how hard it was going to be.
Yeah.
And when we started struggling, it was like almost immediately. The first time we spent time together, we were crossing physical boundaries. I honestly will say that it's been God's mercy and God's grace that we haven't actually done the deed, but it has not been easy, and it's only been God that's helped us.
Yeah.
And struggling with that and having no one to talk to was really, really hard.
Yeah.
Because we know marriages surround us, but we just kind of assume that they wouldn't understand. A lot of marriages don't talk about this until after they're married, like, oh yeah. So we felt like at the time that maybe we were like the only relationship struggling with it.
Yeah, it brought so much shame. And like many times, like it brought a lot of shame and it caused us to, I guess, not talk about it with anyone. Like we thought that we could just fix it by ourselves. Like we thought that we were strong enough to fix it and like not, fall into temptation. But that's not true. That was a lie. And at first it was a little bit scary to talk about because, again, like we didn't, especially me, like didn't want to be judged. and we didn't want to seem like, oh, you know, like they can't be trusted and stuff like that. And it honestly does suck because like we're older now. So for us, it's kind of silly sometimes to have supervision, to have accountability, people like that will help us keep those boundaries. But at the same time, it's necessary because we do want to wait for marriage. And we know that God sees takes pleasure in that. He takes delight in our obedience because it's not just for us, but there's a reason why God wants us to wait too.
Yeah. For me, I always thought like that it was gonna be easier because we have a goal in mind. We're working towards marriage, so I thought like that would make it a little easier to wait. But since we spend long amounts of time not seeing each other,
Mm-hmm.
when we see each other, it's like there's all that tension coming together. And at first, like I didn't love the idea of having supervision, but honestly, I know that for Val, especially when we met, that was her main thing. She told me like I asked, what would you want in a relationship? And she said, I'm pretty set on not
I
fornicating.
said, I was like, I'm never gonna fornicate.
And I think we both kind of went in with unrealistic expectations.
Yes.
Like this is gonna be easy. We both know that we don't want to like mess up.
Just very naive because
Yeah.
it's not talked about. Like we were like, yeah, we're not gonna struggle at all.
Because you see all these podcasts about like these perfect couples, and like you see all these things about like on social media. What I realize, and even just being honest, what me and Val post on social media is just that. It's highlights.
Yeah.
Like you guys don't see us arguing. You don't see us, in disagreements.
And it's like that with every relationship. Like it's only the good parts, but there's so much more underneath all of that.
You don't see the times where we messed up. Like you only see what we want to show you, and then both of us serve at our church.
Yeah.
That was like another big factor. There's a lot of shame. Like even when we're not in person, there are times that we cross a lot of boundaries. That's something that we both learned. That
It
boundaries,
doesn't matter,
yeah.
the distance. Like whether you're close by or you're far apart, there's still a temptation there in some way or form. And we didn't like I guess why it took us by surprise is because up until we started dating throughout our whole friendship, like again, like Noel said, we never we had really good boundaries. Like we never talked about anything sexual or lustful or anything, just like like human desire, like or flesh's desire. So once we like were able to meet each other in person, that changed a lot.
What I didn't realize about relationships was that, or emotions, is that emotions are really powerful. Like, yes, you have your convictions, but when you have feelings for someone too, it, like, all those, like, convictions sometimes can go out the window if you're not careful. And I think I had done a lot of work, but there was honestly a lot of hard work that still needed to be done. There were still a lot of places where, like, I was allowing things because my idea going into this, I know that Val doesn't want to, have sex before marriage. So I kind of, in the beginning, relied a lot on her to say no to me. But what I didn't realize, and somebody had to explain to me, is that, like, it's not her job to say no to me. It's my job to lead her. Like, biblically, the man is the spiritual leader in the household. And I was putting a responsibility on her that she was not supposed to have. And then two, when you have feelings for somebody, it's not that easy to just say no. Like, your convictions, but love can really blind you.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of times we would get really ashamed. I think on my side, there was always that feeling like I'm not gonna be a good husband. Every time we did something we regretted, whether in person or like through text or through like on the phone through FaceTime, because that's one thing we've learned. Distance makes you really creative. When your body craves something, like, you know, it wants it, it finds a way. What did you feel like when we would mess up or?
Well, it caused a lot of distance between us. If it broke trust and it broke like we can't trust each other, or it brought up second thoughts like, oh, like, is does he even respect me? Does she even respect herself? Do they really love God the way that they say they love God? So it just brought up so many other questions that made me like kind of second guess like the type of person that we could be. And um it brought a lot of emotional distance too, because many times we wouldn't want to talk, or like the next day like it would just be very, very weird, and just not cold, but like barely talk at all, like maybe a couple texts. And it,
Mm,
it sucked. Like we just wanted to be alone and not talk to each other.
yeah, I felt that too, and kind of like around a couple of times, there was like a couple of times where our relationship got really, 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 really bad, where I didn't know if we were gonna make it. Um, and that hurt me because it's like, it's crazy how lust can turn something like so pure as love and, threaten to destroy it.
Yeah.
It threatens your perception of yourself, it threatens your perception of women. I learned a lot of things that I thought I was free from, which I was free from them. And to be like completely transparent, this is something that we can say like we're overcoming. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say we overcome it fully. I
But
believe that Jesus already overcame all things.
yes, but one thing that definitely was like changing like was a turning point for us, is realizing that we cannot keep it a secret and we can't do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we can't just fix it ourselves. We have to, yes, pray about it, but like prayer in just private prayer between us and like personal is not enough. Like you have to talk about it and you have to open up, no matter how embarrassing or how shameful it is. And not with just anyone,
Yeah.
again, because people can be judgmental. It took me like a long time to even like want to talk about it, but it was with someone, eventually it was with someone that I was able to trust.
I remember when I first brought up the idea of us talking to someone, it was scary for both of us. And
Hmm.
we decided that like I think we can do this. We can do this.
Yeah.
Because there are periods of time where we're like we're good, like
Hmm.
completely good. Um, we're still tempted, but like
We can control that
yeah.
temptation.
And a lot of times
Yeah.
I've noticed is those times when we were seeking God actively
Hmm.
together
Yeah.
or like fasting, praying. I think fasting opened a window to victory.
Yeah.
And fasting is good, prayer is good, reading the word is good, but I think you're correct. I think you're right. Like the biggest thing that changed the whole game was not going at it alone. Because the longer we kept it a secret, the more power it had over us.
Yeah.
Like we continue to, take one step forward, but then three steps back. And it felt really frustrating. And like to be honest, like we still struggle. Like we still
It
have our
doesn't just
days.
disappear.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because like my attraction for Val is not just gonna disappear. It doesn't go away like Val says, but now
Yeah.
like
And we thought it did at first. We thought it
yeah.
was just gonna go away magically.
I remember the first time Val sent me this girls' videos, and it was so refreshing like, to hear somebody talking about this
Yeah.
and realize we're not the only ones doing this. And also, like the biggest decision, like I think that kind of influenced our decision to talk to somebody.
Oh, dang it. You know what? We parked on the wrong one. It's
Oh,
okay.
we have to walk.
Yeah, we're gonna have to walk.
That's okay. Get a steps in.
Okay.
I was terrified. We found two friends of mine
Mm-hmm.
that I knew that I could trust. But
And again, sorry, I just want to clarify again. They're married. They've been married for several years
mhm,
already. So
yeah.
they've been in our position before. And
What have I gone there?
they, yeah, you can go ahead. They're still a young couple and they don't have kids right now. But I felt like after praying about it, because I kept praying, like, who can I talk to this about? Like, who can I trust to talk to this about? And like that same couple kept coming up to my mind. And after a while, like I was like, okay, I can't just keep like pushing this aside. Like I know I got to talk to someone. And like I think God is telling me I can trust these people.
I remember like I approached them after church one day and I said, "Hey," and I was so scared because they're good friends, but I still like my biggest fear is disappointing people, and just feeling that I was gonna disappoint them or something like that was a really really big fear of mine. I was like, what are they gonna think about me? They're gonna be so disappointed in me. Just here, I guess.
Go up the other one, but
Okay.
I think there's a parking spot
And but I was actually surprised that it was the opposite of what I thought it was gonna be. They were so gentle with me. They weren't dismissive of everything that had happened. Like they still like encouraged me to take responsibility for it. But it was not what I expected them. I expected them to tell like, to like, be like we're so upset at you. You knew better, all this stuff. You're
there. Yeah, right here.
and we were met with such compassion and
Mm-hmm.
this whole like idea like you guys can do better. There
Yeah.
is better for your relationship. Um, kind of like, oh, my mic's here. This whole idea of like we're here for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I really am happy that we chose them to talk to because I feel like anybody else we would have talked to them and they would have been like, okay, we'll just pray about it.
Yeah, we'll just pray about it. And can we say their names?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Jasmine, she's the wife, and I was able to talk to her, and she prayed for me, of course, but she also gave me a lot of really good advice, and she let me know that yes, it's wrong, but at the same time, like she gave me so much encouragement, and like she was letting me know, like, how she also struggled with lust in her relationship before marriage, and it for me like that was so um good to hear because it felt like I wasn't alone in this, like I wasn't the only one, and it helped, like, I guess lift that shame that was on me too, because then I realized that this isn't just like something that is wrong with me. It's something that is normal because everybody has these feelings.
Yeah.
But what's wrong is that, you know, demonstrating those or like putting action those feelings before time, because God says that there's a time for everything, and we were trying to do things in our time and not in
Mm,
God's time.
yeah. It brought a lot of damage to us, like we said, a lot of like we lost a lot of trust in each other.
Hmm.
And I think when David and Jasmine talked to me, they emphasized the importance of creating a safe space for Valeria. And when you're in a relationship that is just lustful, that's not a relationship you feel safe in because you can't talk about important things. You don't feel heard, don't feel validated. And there was so many conversations that we were not having because of
Hmm.
lust, because of
Yeah.
like lustful things we were doing. We weren't having sex, but we were doing a lot of things leading up to sex, getting us thinking about sex. And we are about to be married, and we weren't having conversations like, what do we want our marriage to look like,
Hmm.
And I think that's the purpose of the enemy is like when he can give you something beforehand, he can keep you distracted from other things.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely keeping us distracted from what truly mattered. And
Mm-hmm.
like again, like lust was taking from us. It felt like every single time that um we fell into that temptation, it kept breaking our relationship, and each time it was like a bigger impact.
Mm-hmm.
So I was getting a little bit scared in that way, because I was like, what is happening to us? Like, I feel like every single time this happens, I'm losing trust in you. I get fearful of the future. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is our relationship going to be like in the future? And just so many other things were starting to come up because of this, because of lust.
Yeah, it definitely brings out the worst in us. And there are a lot of things that we've changed, even in the last couple of months
Mm-hmm.
since we had this talk with Jasmine and David.
And also, I want to say that the Bible tells us to flee from temptation. Like,
Mm.
it tells us to run away from it. So,
Yeah,
run away from those moments instead of trying to fight it, which was what we were trying to do. We were
yeah.
trying to stay there with lust
Hmm.
and try to fight it on our own. But the Word of God tells us to run away from it. Don't try to fight it.
Yeah, that we were doing so many things so wrong. Like, we can handle being alone. We don't need
Mm-hmm.
supervision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we like there's a lot of things that we justified too. Like, we're in a relationship, we can do this. Like, it's normal
Mm-hmm.
to do this. They were like, do you want to go over some of the things like we learn we can't do?
Well, I kind of want to go over things that we can do,
Okay,
that we've learned from,
okay.
because I feel like what we can't do is a lot, very broad.
Yeah,
There's a lot of things,
yeah,
like, we know what we can't do,
yeah.
but what we can do to combat is different, because I think that's what we can put into practice.
Hmm.
Um,
So it's something we can do.
well, I'm 25 and Noelle's 27.
Hmm.
And at first, it felt like we can be trusted to be alone, which we can for most of the part. But we realized that it also opens the door to doing other things when you're not having supervision. So even though it sucks to have it, it is good to have a third person coming along, like a sibling or a parent, um, for anything. And also, I think this one is very obvious, but do not sleep together. Don't stay
Yeah.
in the same room. Don't stay in the same bed. Um,
And it's hard because like sometimes we're like we don't want to have sex. We just want to hold each other. And we've
mhm.
learned that like it's better to like not be in a place and like that could lead to somewhere than to be in there and not
Yeah.
have a way out.
Yeah, because things escalate really quickly.
Can I just say what like
Hmm.
having supervision has also helped me in though?
Yeah.
This last trip, like we spent a lot of time. Like our first trip, we traveled a lot. Like we visited a lot of places.
Hmm.
We were a lot of places alone. Did a lot of things that like we shouldn't have done. And now these last two visits we've had, we
Hmm.
spent a lot of time supervised. But
Yeah.
because of that, we've gotten to know each other's family,
Yeah.
and I think that's so important in a marriage. Like
Yeah.
because like you find out more about the person that you're with when you're around their family.
Hmm.
And we've had a lot of meaningful conversations with each other's family.
Hmm.
And when you're dating and just like going doing your own thing, you don't build those relationships. And
Yeah.
I think we've been better for it. I know Valeria more as a person. I know her family more, and it is sometimes really honestly it's annoying having like my parents there.
Yes.
Um,
Like, we're not gonna lie, it is annoying and it sucks. But we're looking back at it, like, at the end of the day, once we look back at it, we're like, oh, actually, I'm really glad that this person came along with us
mhm,
and help us keep us accountable, whether they know it or they don't know it.
mhm.
And I guess, yeah, you can invite your parents too into it. Like, if
Yeah.
your parents, or if you have that trust with them,
Mhm.
like, you can talk to them and like ask them, like, hey, can you please help us in this area? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if anything, it's such a blessing to have people that will be able to help keep you accountable. What else?
Well, I know it's like we're not talking too much about the things we can't do, but like we realize like there's a, it really, like, how we start our day changes the trajectory of the day. We used to start our day getting up early, like going to the Airbnb meeting, and like when you're at the Airbnb alone, you don't have any plans, like things happen.
Yes.
And we started like, and we haven't had a perfect week, but the days we had better days were the days we woke up and we're like, let's go to the gym together,
Mm-hmm.
or let's have a Bible study,
Mm-hmm.
let's get in a word. My battery's about to run out, but as soon as I charge it, I do want to tell something that happened this week that finally convinced us to do the video,
Yeah.
that I think reminded us what lust keeps us away from.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And what was I gonna say? Dang it, what were you talking about before?
about how,
The second thing? Oh, yeah. So keeping yourself busy, I definitely agree with Noel. Keep yourself busy. Have the day planned out, because temptation will come up in that little space of boredom where you're just bored, you don't know what to do, so might as well do this.
yeah,
So like keep yourself busy, have do things where there's a lot of people too, nothing secluded, or
yeah,
like where people can't see, like go out into a coffee shop, have a Bible study, go to the gym, start your day early, going on a walk, but just try to avoid being alone without anyone else around, I guess.
yeah. I think all those things, like, there's a lot of spiritual things you can do, but there's a lot of practical things
Yeah.
you can do as well, because like there are times like you can go to a church service together,
Hmm.
but like it can literally be on the drive home where you like it just be a moment. There are other things that you need to implement, like sometimes like Val would ask her brother to come with us, and you know, when you're our age and you're, engaged, you don't want a teenager like in the car with you, but we want our marriage to be blessed.
Yeah.
We want to have God's blessing. And it's hard, like we both serve a church. It's hard to go up and minister to God knowing that we're not right before God. It's
Hmm.
hard keeping secrets. It's so much easier living life without keeping those secrets and not living. So anyone struggling out there, we understand. We get it. A lot of people wait till they're married to talk about, like, oh yeah, we struggle too. But like, we're struggling right now. We struggle day to day. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
But I really think that this video is gonna make a difference, and I really do want to get to the part about. So I think I might cut it here, and then charge this thing, and then we'll talk about what lust is keeping you from in your
Hmm.
relationship, because a lot of times people think that we need to break up. You know,
Hmm.
that's because we thought that like maybe we're not good together,
Yeah.
and
Or
honestly,
maybe we need to postpone our
yeah.
marriage, our wedding. Maybe we're not ready to take that step, which is not good.
And maybe there's something that the enemy's trying to keep you from.
Hmm.
And we've learned that this week. And it's encouraged us.